Greetings, peasant! This is a multi-part series I'm making, and in the interest of saving your time and my sanity, I'm not gonna bother making intros for every single one of these things. You want a well-edited, delicate entry to this series, just go watch the first one. Cause here, we are diving straight in. When translating the Inklings into Smash Bros., there are 4 defining characteristics we need to carry over to make sure they still feel like the Inklings. First, they've gotta be quick. Splatoon is a very fast-paced game, where you are constantly moving around, so the Inkling should be one of the faster characters in the game. Second, Inklings never punch or kick each other. There's no reason to start now. Maybe a sliding dash attack, but that's it. Everything else should use ink or ink weapons. Third, transformation. Are you a kid or are you a squid is the Splatoon slogan. It's a very important part of the series that needs to be a fundamental part of the Inklings moveset. And lastly, playing the Inklings well should involve some form of controlling as much of the stage as possible. That's the entire point of Splatoon. It should appear in some form here. With those core concepts in mind, here is the character's major gimmick. The Inklings start each stop with a full tank of paint that they use as fuel for all of their moves. You run out of ink completely, and you make Solo Popo look like a top-tier character. Thankfully, it's not difficult to get ink back. The vast majority of the Inklings moveset would spread ink across the surface of the stage. By transforming into squids, the Inklings will dive into their ink to slowly refuel, just like they do in Splatoon. How does the Inkling transform? By simply touching ink. Once they've transformed, they stay extremely low to the ground, popping up to attack then going straight back down, making them very evasive characters. Or in game speak, they basically automatically crouch whenever they're not attacking. While their initial run speed is somewhere around Mario's, transforming into a squid would make the Inklings one of the quickest characters in the game, swimming at somewhere near Fox's speed. They can move at this speed vertically, and even upside down, but only if there is ink. Now, unlike Splatoon, we can't have the ink stay around forever. That removes the point of having the gimmick, and would lead to players hiding on the bottoms of stages. Which is admittedly funny, but also very stupid. So, what could get rid of it? My initial thought was that enemies could attack the ink to clear it. But to be perfectly honest, that sounds like a tedious process that I don't want to deal with in Smash Bros. So instead, we'll make it time-based. The ink will slowly fade away after it's placed, much quicker if it's on a vertical or upside-down surface. This puts the responsibility of managing ink on the Inklings, not their opponents, as it should be, forcing them to constantly micromanage the stage in order to keep their options open. So as it stands now, we have created a terrifyingly mobile fighter that is near impossible to hit. Clearly, we need to design some drawbacks. An obvious one is weight. If these kids aren't the lightest characters in the game, they've gotta be pretty close. Which makes sense. Kids aren't known for being very heavy, and squids straight up don't have bones. And seeing as they are shooting paint, it's only logical that their attacks wouldn't do very much knockback. Outside of a few risky attacks, probably involving the roller, the Inklings are going to have a hard time finishing the fight. Between weight and low kill potential, that should be enough to keep these kids in check. Now, I'm not going to go in depth on specific moves the Inklings would use, as I find the concepts themselves to be more interesting, but I want to reinforce that I want the Inklings in Smash to feel like I'm playing the Inklings in Smash. Too many characters in this series feel like a mishmash of cobbled together references, and not how said character would actually function in a game like this. And I think we've managed to do that here. I'm content that the concept we have created would fit the theme of an Inkling. An evasive character that controls the stage, so they can swim circles around their opponents, whittling them down with rapid-fire, low-damage paint attacks. So that's the character locked in. Let's see what they'll bring along with them. I know these seem like easy alternate costumes, because they are, but they just as easily make for a clone character. And since the very mention of clones tends to cause the common folk to riot, let me clear up a few misconceptions. Clones do not take up slots on the roster. Lucina didn't get added in the place of King K. Rool. You could take away a dozen clones and it still wouldn't make enough room for a full character. Also, there was no time to make these characters unique. If you think a character has more potential, that's fair, but you'd have to sacrifice an existing character to make them that way. Apart from that, I find other arguments against clones to be very petty. They're not enough to justify removing what is essentially bonus content. Plus, having different takes on playstyles is healthy for the game. It allows more people to enjoy a single playstyle, and the Octolings are perfect for that. They play exactly the same as the Inklings in Splatoon, so being clones makes sense. But there's enough content to pull from that game that they could easily have a few unique abilities to upgrade them from costumes. An easy, logical clone. From what I've seen, the popular consensus for a Splatoon stage is either Inkopolis Square or the arena where you face DJ Octavio. Both would certainly work, but Inkopolis doesn't seem all that interesting as a battleground to me, and I'd prefer to save Octavio for some kind of boss rush, or for adventure mode, or both. The stage I would pick would either be Camp Triggerfish or Mahi Mahi Resort, as they use the same gimmick, changing water levels. If the animators for this game have to keep making swimming animations for every single character, we should have some chances to actually see them. Either of the aforementioned areas would fix this. Normally, the stage is a decently sized battleground, where instead of bottomless pits, you have water along the edge of the stage and in a pit in the center. Every, let's say, minute, the entire stage will flood, leaving just a few tiny platforms for people to fight on. This lasts for around 15 seconds, at which point the water recedes, bringing the stage back to normal. And before anybody says it, yes, the Inklings would be able to swim, for the same reason that Greninja wouldn't be able to one-shot them. Because that would be dumb. The Squid Sisters. Easily the most recognizable Splatoon characters after the Inklings, they make for prime assist trophy candidates. These would be one of the stronger assists. Once they pop up, they begin a performance that forces all enemies to dance until their concert ends. Basically Peach's Final Smash, but much more entertaining. And I suppose every now and then Off the Hook could appear instead of the sisters, using different music but having the same effect. Splatoon has got plenty of source material to draw items from. All sorts of ink guns and bombs and umbrellas, any of which would work fine in Smash, and I'd bring in several. But there's a bit of a problem. Many of these function too closely to existing explosive items. So how about this? Instead of dealing damage, Splatoon items bog your enemies down. The ink would cling to them, slowing their run speed to a crawl and crippling their jump height. The burst bomb would work like a bomb, but it would slow. The curling bomb is a slowing bomb chew. The ink mine works like a motion sensor bomb. You get the picture. And for a unique item, how about the splash wall? It would place perpendicularly to the stage, lightly damaging and slowing anybody underneath. In case you missed it, in the first part of this series I talked about a choose-your-own adventure style of story mode, where characters would interact with each other in Fire Emblem support conversation style dialogues. Which presents an obvious problem, seeing as the main Inklings and Octolings in Splatoon don't talk. But there's an easy solution. Instead of speaking themselves, various Splatoon side characters will radio in to give advice, observations, and insight depending on the situation your character finds themselves in. To be completely honest with you guys, I'm only making this a segment because I want to make more of these dialogue cards. These are so much fun to make. You know how occasionally Goldeen will pop out of a Pokeball? A completely useless event for the person who threw it that really should be a Magikarp, but we'll get to that later. There's not really one of these for the assist trophies. You could argue that Starfy fills the same role, but at least Starfy attacks. We need something just as useless. So let me present the second Splatoon assist trophy, Judd. Judd sleeps. That's it.